Hello everyone and welcome back to Crypto Oracles. So today we're going to take a look at the Helium blockchain, what it does, what it's being used for, and how you can make money with it. So the Helium blockchain is a global distributed network of hotspots that create a public long-range wireless coverage for IoT devices. So what does this actually mean? It means that it's the people's network, it's the people's blockchain, as they state here on their website, and is a shift for decentralized wireless infrastructure. What this means is that we're moving from a reality where network providers are either the government or a private company like Vodafone, BT, or whatever company you have in your country, to something that's actually being owned and maintained by the people. So the outputs, which is the apps that you can buy, they produce and are compensated in HNT, the native token for the Helium blockchain. And so what's the Helium blockchain? So the Helium blockchain is a new type of blockchain, which is completely open source. It's a public blockchain created entirely to incentivize people to build the Helium network. So let's take a look at the actual documentation of the Helium blockchain. So as they state on their website, there's a really good docs I recommend reading. The Helium blockchain is based on a novel algorithm which is called proof of coverage. So if you're not familiar with blockchains in general and how they work, let's stop for a second and explain this. So most blockchains will do the proof that some transactions and the blocks that are being added to the blockchain are genuine. The transactions really did happen, nobody messed around with them. Let's take a look at Ethereum, for example. So Ethereum, which I hope you all know, if you don't, it's one of the major cryptocurrencies around at the moment. Ethereum uses proof of work, which means that in order to prove that a transaction really happened, you need to solve some mathematical problem. You need to use your GPU, which is your graphics card on your computer, or your CPU, or a machine dedicated for mining, to solve this problem and confirm the transaction. Other blockchains, like for example Cardano, they use a different type of proof, which is called proof of stake, which means that you have to be a major stakeholder in order to confirm transactions, and anybody who's a stakeholder can confirm the transactions. And Helium uses what they call proof of coverage, which kind of makes sense, right? They're trying to build a network. They need to make sure that the network exists and it really is where people say it is. And they reward miners in HNT, which is the native token. So let's take a look at the proof of coverage. So proof of coverage, it's used to verify that outputs are located where they claim to be. So it tries to verify on an ongoing basis that outputs are honestly representing their location and the wireless network coverage they're creating from that location. So why did it decide to go for proof of coverage and not proof of work or proof of stake? Well, because it suits the use case. We're trying to build a network with very specific characteristics of the network, and it makes sense to use a proof that relies around these characteristics. So let's take a look at the challenges. So we said that, for example, in proof of work, you need to solve a mathematical problem using your computer to be an approver of a transaction on the chain. Now, how are you approving allocation in the network? Well, there is different roles that a hotspot can take. And if you look at the documentation, there is full hotspots, which is the ones that you and I can buy, which actually do all of the three roles listed here. But there is also light hotspots that do only one of these roles. So the challenger is the hotspot that constructs and issues the challenge. So this is the guy that's basically saying, okay, now I want to know where the rest of the network is. The transmitter is also the challengee. So this is the guy that says, okay, you told me you want to know where the network is. I'm going to ask everybody else to confirm that they are where they say they are. And the transmitter transmits or beacons the packets to potentially nearby outputs. And then the witness, it's an hotspot that receives the challenge and basically just needs to confirm that they are present, that they are there. So this way they build this blockchain. Now you're probably asking yourself, then what is the blockchain actually used for? Well, the blockchain can then be used by companies, by individuals, by developers to build applications, mostly for IoT devices, smart devices. They allow us to interconnect smart devices that we have in our houses, in industry, in public buildings, and so on. And in order to build this network and build these applications, developers and companies will have to pay to leverage the network, and they will pay in credits. And credits are pretty much just a subversion of the HNT token. It's a derivative of the HNT token. So let's take a look at the mining. So we can mine crypto using the Helium blockchain and the hotspots. New type of mining. It's different from what we usually know as of mining, because it's proof of coverage, not proof of work. There is quite a few hotspots providers, so you can buy it from quite a few different people here. And there is a bit of explanation here on data credits. So data credits is what I just mentioned now. It's basically this subversion of the HNT token, is a derivative of the HNT token, which companies and developers on the chain will pay for in order to use the chain. All right, so let's actually dive in and look at a more interesting part. So here's a map of all the hotspots that there are currently in New York. So you can see that New York is one of the most crowded areas. So if we go and pick a cell here in Manhattan, we should see from the list of hotspots that people are not actually mining as much because they need to share their profits among each others. So if we take a look at here, look, there is quite a few hotspots already. And if we look at how much they mine in the last 3 days, we're looking at 0.02 HNT, 0.14 HNT, 0.15. So a few of these 2 HNT, but still very, very low. And this makes sense because the rules are that you need to be at least 300 meters away from the other hotspot. But once you have a big network, you start sharing the HNT being mined. And you can take a look at the documentation to see how much HNT is being mined per hour. But let's now move across the Atlantic and let's take a look at France. Let's try to find somewhere in France where there is less network or developing network. So let's take a look at this cluster up here. There we go. So if we take a look at this cluster up here, this is a fairly new developing cluster. And if we select one of these points, we should be able to see that the minting rewards are much higher. Sorry, the mining rewards are much higher. So people here are being paid much more than what we just seen in New York. So just gonna wait for this to load 1 second. And so there we go. So look at this guy is mining 8.53 HNT. So if we take a look at him, we should be able to see which other hotspots its hotspot is connecting to. And the range can be actually pretty wide. We can go from 3 kilometers up to 30 kilometers. So you can see this guy is connected to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hotspots. And in the last 30 days, this hotspot managed to mint about 8 tokens for a total of $241. Considering that the device itself costs about $400, this is actually pretty good profits. So is it still worth it buying a hotspot? I think so. It is definitely profitable up to some level. And as the community grows, there will be more and more. And as the network develops, the rewards would be less. But at the time being, if you live in an area that is not too crowded, it is definitely a good opportunity to look into. So let's take a look at the actual hotspots. So you can buy a hotspot from many different providers. There is an official one, which is CalChip from the Helium website. So let's take a look at them. The CalChip hotspot, it goes from $999. You can put it up on your window. It's not huge, and it will just mine HNT for you. Bear in mind, there is a difference in between the US and Europe, so make sure you buy the one for the correct region. What else do we have? We have the Bobcat, which is, to me, one of the coolest looking hotspots that we have in the market right now. And this one is being sold for about $400, which means that you can go break even much quicker by mining HNT. FreedomFi. So FreedomFi is the only hotspot among the existing ones at the moment that allows you to build the 5G network as well. So you basically provide cellular coverage in your area for the 5G network, which means you also get more rewards. You can look into their webpage. They explain a bit better how it works. Bear in mind that most of these hotspots, you actually have to get on a waiting list to buy them. The Bobcat is one of the few that I found that you can just add to your cart, pay for it, and they will ship it. Contrarily, is a smaller version of what we've seen so far. You can plug it into your window, and it's also about 500 euros or $600. So lastly, let's take a look at how much money you can actually make at the moment. So this will depend on the current level of networks in your area. So if you take a look at the network and the hotspots, if we say there is a few hotspots in your area, so let's say it's a developing one, like the one I just shown you in my example, we're going to receive 0.08 HNT as a challenger. So remember, the challenger is the one that issues the challenge. The challengee is the one that sends it to all the other hotspots, and this is 0.61 HNT. And then the witness is the one that says, hey, I'm here, I'm actually part of the network, and they get 2.44 HNT, which brings us up to about $800 per month. Now, we've seen that these can be much higher or much lower depending on where you are, so make sure that you find a location which is suitable. An interesting case to look at is if there is nobody else around your area, then you only get 0.0 HNT as a challenger. Now, this makes sense. There is nobody else where you can send your challenge, where you can act as a witness. You can't send it to anybody else. You can't be a challengee. You can only generate challenges. That's all you can do. And therefore, you only get paid a much smaller amount. So I hope this video has been useful. Feel free to add any comment, ask any questions. Don't forget to follow us on our Twitter profile, our Telegram profile, and take a look at our Discord for more conversation, discussion around trading, research, ideas. And if you want to suggest us something that we could research and take a look into, feel free to drop a comment and we'll definitely look into it. Thank you and see you next time.